bring in Ohio Congressman Brad Wenstrup. Thank you for joining us here today, Congressman. We appreciate it.
Sure,
did you
glad to.
also support the release of the memo, and why do you think it's important?
Well, I think it's important because if you look back on the past year, we have been stalled at every capacity that we could, practically, with either from the people across the aisle or from DOJ and FBI, to the point where we had to start issuing subpoenas. But we were able to get enough together on this particular topic, aside from the other parts of the investigation, on this particular topic of what's taking place in the FISA court. And as we are the purveyors of oversight on DOJ and FBI, we represent the people. It's our job. It's part of our mission statement. So we felt it was important to get that out. And I also think it's important, too, when you talk about what you had the clip from Mr. Swalwell. That's a little bit misleading, because I think it is very, very important that the court understand and know that this was paid for by the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign. That is a huge thing to leave out in the process. And as far as Mr. McCabe's statement, let me also add that we had our memo vetted, and one of the people that took a look at it was an attorney that was at the interview and also was part of the FISA application, and gave it the go-ahead, saying there was nothing in this memo that was without fact.
Now, when it comes to McCabe's statement, there's been some discrepancy, some back and forth on that between the Republicans and the Democrats. The memo says Deputy Director McCabe testified before the committee on December 2011 that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from the FISA court without the Steele dossier information. Democrats argue it wasn't said quite that way. Would you support the release of the transcript of McCabe's testimony?
I would, as long as we're not releasing anything that has anything to do with national security. Obviously, Mr. Stewart was in the room, someone who I trust emphatically, and that certainly was the impression they came away with. And then again, let me just reference that it was the FBI attorney who had oversight on this memo and vetted it and said that that is an accurate statement. It may not be word for word, but that it was an accurate statement.
What about the potential release of a Democratic memo as well, a rebuttal memo, if you will? Do you also support that release?
Sure, I do. I want to be open and bipartisan, but let me take you through the process there. Adam Schiff was arguing that we needed to have our memo vetted. Didn't know that we had it vetted before we turned it over to the public and took that vote. The first vote that they took, we said we would let them release theirs to our colleagues, which is what our memo did at first as well. So he was arguing that it be vetted, but then he came back with a motion saying that he wanted theirs to be released at the same time as ours immediately. And I said, well, yours hasn't been vetted, so we voted against that. If they come back with a memo that's been vetted and cleared, I think that that's fine, and we should have a more open discussion about it.
Now, the chairman has also implied there's more to come in this sense, potentially something regarding the State Department. If you could shed a little light on that, would you support a further release in that regard?
Well, I think it depends on the situation, not necessarily another release, but certainly further investigation, as the chairman was referring to. What I have found throughout this investigation is that we do find that one thing is leading to another, and that's how we came upon this. Now, I mean, keep in mind, there's a lot that we learned because we really had to push the envelope, and a lot of people didn't want us to find out things, certainly like the financial records at Fusion GPS. This is the battle that we've been facing throughout this whole process, which is why we thought it was important, at least on this component, to get this memo out in front of the American people that should have some knowledge of how their government works. They pay the bills.
It seems like one domino falls and then the other side has a domino, and we're watching this going back and forth, and ultimately, hopefully, we'll have all the answers and we'll be able to shed a light on all of this. So we really appreciate you sharing a bit of your insight here as the process moves forward.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Appreciate it.